Hi, it's Laura at Aquamarine18. Thanks for stopping by my channel today. Welcome or welcome back. This is my end of month recap and favorites highlights video for March 2021. I will be talking about some of the things that I talk about in every end of month recap. So the books I've read this month, the decks I've worked with or received this month, the animal that I explored this month. And I'll also just be starting off with a couple of extra things kind of unique to the month of March. I will timestamp below, since particularly with the books, you know I can ramble for a long time. So March was my birthday month. I shared already a video of some of my birthday activities and goodies. I had a good birthday, despite of course not being able to have a party, which I would have liked to do. So it was a good time, and I especially just enjoyed having some time off. I do have jobs that can tend to creep into weekends and, take over if I'm not careful, because there's always something to do. But particularly since my birthday, I've been trying to take at least a full day off every week. It's really rejuvenating, and I think that with working from home, especially now, I'm used to doing a lot of my work from home, but of course this past year, everything for me has shifted to being at home. I really have to be that extra little bit careful about those boundaries, because with, working in my home, it's not like I get to go to an office and then come home right at the end of the day and then that's it. So I've also been trying to kind of maintain those spatial boundaries, keep my work in here, which is my home office, and not let it kind of sprawl into the dining room and everywhere else. So that time off was really, really good. I did a reading for myself and had some ritual time and some meditation time, and of course the time outdoors. So it was a good birthday time, I guess. I also got to go, and this wasn't in my birthday video because it happened later, I finally got to go shopping with my best friend. And we always like to go clothing shopping together, and have a lot of fun trying on things that end up being horrible and, sharing our commentary with each other. So we finally got to do this. We went very, very early in the morning, to avoid any kind of long lines or busyness, and wore our masks and all of that, and we had a great time. So that was really a nice outing, and a kind of outing that normally we would have, 4 times a year, maybe more, that we haven't had in a year or so. So we had both had birthdays early on this year, and we had gifted each other gift cards to our favorite clothing store that we go to together. So we had a really good time, and that was a fun highlight of March. It was also, of course, the spring equinox for me, and I shared in a prior video my hike that I went on, inspired by the Deck for Wonder Walking by Amy T. Wan, which I chose a card from, and then went on a hike to a new trail that I hadn't really been on before. That was really nice way to spend the spring equinox, particularly given that where I live, it's been very, very cold up until very, very recently. So I'm trying now to get outside as much as I possibly can as the weather gets warmer. So that was a really nice thing. I'm totally going to be sitting outside today because it's really nice here today. And the rest of the week is supposed to be chilly again. So outdoor time has been a highlight for sure. I also, not on the spring equinox day itself, but around there, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this one, did some spring cleaning. So that was really nice. I ended up cleaning my tarot and oracle shelves. I think I've shown them before, but my tarot decks are all on a wooden shelf that is mounted to my wall. The shelf was built by my father and my partner. And so they're all there. And then my oracle decks are actually on, it's actually a shoe rack, but it's a tall, narrow shoe rack. So I took all of the decks down and I dusted, and I spent some time kind of looking at each deck, which was really, really nice. Some of them I hadn't gotten out and looked at in a while, particularly the ones that are a little bit more seasonal and summery that have been sitting on the shelf for a while waiting for the summer. So that was a really good, feeling to just go through everything and put everything back in a nice way that is vaguely sorted. I can see everything. My collection isn't that massive, so it's not like things are hidden really, but just nice to know where, like exactly where everything is. So that felt really good. The other cleaning I did though that was really therapeutic actually was going through all of my clothing. And I have, I don't know, probably a smaller than average or average amount of clothing, just a, regular bedroom closet and a dresser. And I went through everything and I am getting rid of, by getting rid of, I mean donating, quite a lot of stuff. And I go through and make a donation bag every, 6 months or so, usually. But this time I really felt the need to do that. I've been feeling kind of down on my wardrobe lately for a whole bunch of reasons. So it felt really good to go through and like things that do not fit my body shape are out. And that is a really good feeling because sometimes I can catch myself kind of holding on to clothing items that do not fit, that are too small, that fit once, but like not particularly recently, with this kind of, they'll fit again, kind of lurking in the back of my mind that I think is just really not good for me. So it felt really, really good to just know, like these things are leaving me now, and they'll go to, somebody else who they will fit, who can use them and appreciate them, and they don't need to be sitting in my closet, staring at me unworn. So that felt really, really good. And also I feel like I've been dressing for work exclusively for the past couple of years since graduating university and working full-time or full-ish time, at least some of the time. I feel like I've gotten away from dressing in a way that feels fun to me, a lot of the time. And some of that is budgeting. When I'm shopping, I'm looking at things thinking, where can I wear this? Where would I wear this? And wanting to have things that are good for work. But after talking, and I actually talked this through with my mom, to figure out why am I feeling so down about things. And like, it's weird to be feeling down about these kind of things right now when it's not like I'm going anywhere, right? Like half the time I'm wearing sweatpants. So it's not even like I don't have things to wear the places that I'm going because I'm going to the grocery store once a week and that's pretty much it. But, I kind of did some, I don't know, what do I want to call self-analysis, I guess, in conversation with my mom about why I would be feeling down on that. And I feel like it has to do with feeling like I've kind of lost my aesthetic personality in the process of trying to slowly build a wardrobe that's good for a particular kind of workplace that I'm in, and maybe that I've kind of stifled my creativity a bit in terms of my style. So working through that has been interesting and is ongoing. But going through the closet and, moving on some things that just really did not make me feel good, but made me feel like I would maybe fit in better at work, but didn't make me feel like myself, also felt really freeing. And then going shopping, of course, with my friend and getting just a very few things, but, some fun stuff felt really good as well. So that was my kind of March highlights. Going on to decks. I have received 2 decks this month. And I think I've mentioned them both before. Certainly one of them I just did an unboxing. So I just received the Cosmovisions Oracle by James R. Eads. And I haven't worked with it much. I posted the unboxing a couple of days ago, and that was the day that I got it, or the day after. I think I set the video to go visible the morning after I had gotten it, because I had to do a little bit of edits there. But I've only had it for a few days. But what I have been doing, since I also got the larger kind of altar cards, like postcard sized, I've been going through each of these majors one by one and doing a 10-minute meditation in the morning with one. So I've done 0, which was death, 1, which was the crow, 2 is the swan, and 3 is the peacock, was today. So I'm working through these, and it's partly just exploring how I feel about these archetypes as they're depicted in this deck, and the the representation, for example, of the crow as the card that we would normally think of as the magician, since this is an oracle that is based on the tarot structure. And then also working through what James Eads has written in the big guidebook about these cards, and in the context that this deck is exploring the space between lives, or the time between lives, right? And so doing some kind of deep dive reflection on that for myself has been really good. So I can already tell that this deck is a very special one. I haven't even shuffled it. I've just been looking through and again meditating with one major per day. I feel like this one would be great for ancestor kind of readings or work, as well as potentially past lives type work, which is, I think, what it's really designed for, but is not something that I've ever really done much of, or any of at all. So I'm looking forward to exploring like what this deck will do for me in the context of my collection. The other deck that I received this month is the Sawyer's Nature Portals, which is an animal deck. I've shown, I think I've shown this deck before. Certainly there are lots of, that's the artist card at the back, and the instructions. There are lots of walkthroughs of this deck, so I haven't done one, but I've been really enjoying it, and I've been looking at the guidebook, which is a PDF. There is a print-on-demand version of it through Lulu as well, but I think I'm going to try to print the guidebook myself, just because with Lulu, with the shipping tacked on, it can get a little bit pricey. But I really love the artwork in this deck, and so many of the animals are so familiar, so that's a really good thing. And I've enjoyed working with the Sawyer's Nature Portals as well. It has something that's nice. It has the animals listed here in the front, which is good. And it's round, and I do love a round deck. So those are the two decks that I received. In terms of tarot decks I've been working with this month, I've only really worked with 2 over the course of March. One is my Ocean Dry Tarot by Colin, who is, I think it's Story Moon Divination on Instagram, and also Ocean Dry. This is a prototype deck, not available for sale, at least not at the moment. And I really just love this deck. I love how colorful it is. It feels light and springy, summery to me. And I've been very predominantly reading with more pip style decks lately. And this one is just great, and it pairs so well with so many oracle decks. I've really been enjoying working with this one. I had a nice reading for the full moon with this deck just the other day. The other tarot deck that I've read with this month is the Luminous Void Tarot by Laura Zaspan. And from my understanding, I did not know this until after I had this deck, there might be 2 sizes of this deck, and I think this is the big one. I'm not sure. Anyway, this is the backs. I know that this is a deck that there's like a lot of mixed feelings about, I think. Some people don't really like it or don't like the faces or something. It's a watercolor-based deck. It's somewhat Rider-Waite-Smith, but not entirely. And the colors being what they are, I think makes it feel like a spring deck for me that I quite enjoy working with, and I have great readings with this deck. This was the deck that I read with for my spring equinox reading. And this deck is a strange one. I had initially seen this deck around YouTube, you know, other folks getting it and unboxing it and reviewing it, and I really did not think that I would like this deck. I never, you know, had any intention of purchasing this deck. I thought it's kind of something slightly creepy about it. I just, you know, the colors are beautiful, but something about it was just like, no, I don't think I like that. Until I went to, and this was pre-COVID, so I wasn't traveling, you know, when I'm not supposed to be. Until I went to the shop in Toronto, the Hermit's Lamp. And the Hermit's Lamp is a shop that has amazing tarot deck selection, as well as other things as well. You know, different jewelry and candles and incense and all different kinds of things. And I saw this deck in person, and they had it there. And at the Hermit's Lamp, they will have one copy of the decks that they sell, if it's an indie deck, open, so you can look at it. I'm dropping cards everywhere. And they had this one open, and I took it out and I looked at it in person, and it was like, oh, I see why everyone who has this deck does seem to like this deck. I like this deck too, and it came home with me. And it's been a great deck to work with. So I've been enjoying the Luminous Void Tarot this month. I don't know if this is still in print. I have absolutely no idea. It might be. So those are the decks that I've worked with the most and the decks that I've received. Now I'm on to books that I've read this month. And I'm just realizing now that I do not have the books here with me in this room. I have the books in the other room. So I'm going to pause and come back to you with the books. Some of them are ebooks, so I actually don't have them physically, but the ones that I do have physically, I would like to share with you. So 1 second. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. I feel so disorganized. So books I've finished this month. There are 8 of them. I only have 3 of them in physical copies to show you because the rest were ebooks. So the first 3 books that I'll mention are books that I received that are not yet published or are coming out to be published very, very soon, that I wrote reviews of for NetGalley and for Goodreads. So I read those as ebooks. The first was called The Nature of Oaks by Douglas Tallamy, and The Nature of Oaks is, of course, about oak trees, and it's really in particular about the insects and other animals that live on or around oak trees. So the book follows particularly the oaks in the author's yard over the course of a year. And each chapter is a month, and it talks about kind of the changes that the tree goes through and the environment goes through, you know, as it goes. It's very focused on America, I will say. So obviously the climate and the weather is going to vary, and oak trees are very, very, very widespread geographically. So it is based on the author's own experience observing oak trees in the United States. And I believe he's an entomologist, so the love of and fascination with insects definitely is a big part of the nature of oaks, but I can tell from the ebook that it's going to be a really beautiful physical book. The photography in it is amazing, so I enjoyed reading that. It was a very quick read. Very good. I do really like nature writing. I read a novella called The Impossible Resurrection of Grief by Octavia Cade. I had never read Octavia Cade before, and this is a story about, the grief that's referred to in the title, The Impossible Resurrection of Grief, is the grief for species lost to extinction due to human activity, including colonization, over exploitation of other species and climate change, etc. And so in this novella, there's a desire to bring back species that have been lost, and it's clearly not possible, and the kind of severe weight of that and what that means. It was a really intense read. I thought it was really good, but very, very intense. But because I enjoyed it and wanted to read more Octavia Cade in part, I also chose the ebook called Multi-Species Cities, Solar Punk Urban Futures, which is an anthology of solar punk short stories, which are, for the most part, kind of hopeful, optimistic short stories about possible futures that are much more ecologically sustainable and respectful than the present time is, with some interesting potential future technology ideas included. And in particular, with the title Multi-Species Cities, the book's short stories explore the ways in which humans and other species interact and really are not separable in terms of their lives in cities. And I really liked this short story anthology. Inevitably, I loved some stories and didn't love others, but overall, I thought that the collection Multi-Species Cities was really, really good. It focuses in particular on authors from and stories set in the Asia Pacific region, which is certainly, I think, in the domain of speculative fiction, at least as I know it, are underrepresented for sure. So I appreciated that, and I appreciated very much the introduction of the book, how the editors talked about that, and talked about really trying to work against some patterns of representation and underrepresentation in speculative fiction publishing that are exclusionary. So I was really glad to read the Multi-Species Cities, and would suggest it if you're someone who likes short speculative fiction that tends toward the positive, I will say, or the optimistic, I'll say. This was a month of short fiction reading for me, for sure, because I also finished a book that I've been reading for ages and just kept picking up and putting down, and that is Worlds Seen in Passing, 10 Years of Tor.com Short Fiction, edited by Irene Gallo. And this was just a book that I saw at the bookstore in the sale bin. It has the permanent marker dot on it, which at the bookstore that I go to means that it's been kind of taken out of the inventory, and has the sticker slapped on the front that says it's, $3 or something. I don't remember what I actually paid for this, but I certainly didn't pay the list price. I paid maybe $5. And so I saw that it included stories, it says on the front here, including stories by, and some of the names included are Jeff Vandermeer, N.K. Jemisin, Charlie Jane Anders, Yoon Ha Lee, Ken Liu, Kaya Shanti Wilson. So like some absolute favorite authors were in that list. And so, of course, I picked it up. I had read 2 of the short stories before. I had already read N.K. Jemisin's short story in here, because I've read, I think, everything N.K. Jemisin I've already read. And I also had already read the Mary Robinette Kowal, The Lady Astronaut of Mars, because I've read that book series. So, but all the others were new to me, and there were some new authors to me reading this one. And it was, I thought this collection very, very mixed. I did rate each story individually, for review purposes, and my ratings ranged from 1 to 5+ stars. But I did find a few authors in here whose stories that I really loved. John Chu, I had never read before, and I really liked his story. I had never read Ken Liu except as a translator, and I really liked his story as well. And there was a number of them, so I was happy that I read it, though I did find it to be fairly inconsistent. But Tor.com is a publisher of so many authors that I love. I was happy to give it a go for sure. And okay, the most recent book I read this month, I read yesterday in its entirety, and that is a new novella that is out this month. This year I'm reading more new releases, I think, than I ever have. So yesterday I read Nnedi Okorafor's novella Remote Control, and I've read 4 Nnedi Okorafor books before, the Binti Trilogy and Lagoon, and so this was my 5th one, Remote Control, and I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. When I reviewed it on Goodreads, I thought that Remote Control was fantastic, and it follows a young girl, and it's set in near-ish future Ghana, and she develops, I'm trying to talk about it without giving too many spoilers, the young girl develops powers, and they're powers that are very scary, and come to her being referred to or known as a daughter of death who can, kill instantaneously, and the weight of that. And so the novella follows her journey, and she's very young, right? I think in the book she starts out as maybe age 5 or 6, and then the story follows her until age 14, and she's going from town to town looking for the source of these powers, and it's definitely a story of a kind of self-exploration, exploration of one's past, and there's also some certainly some political dimensions to the story, absolutely, in terms of technology and the relationships between Western corporations and the population of Ghana. There's all kinds of things in this novella that's very short and very compact and very intimate and very focused on a very small number of characters. But I really, really enjoyed Remote Control by Nnedi Okorafor. 5 stars. No question, 5 stars. I thought it was excellent. I also read another 5-star book this month, earlier on in the month. And this is a book that I had actually asked for Christmas and got from my mom and dad. And I had saved it, and then I read it this month. And that book is Undrowned: Black Feminist Lessons from Marine Mammals by Alexis Pauline Gumbs. And when I saw the title of this book, it was just like, I need to read this book. It's going to be amazing. The back says that it's a book-length meditation for the human species based on the subversive and transformative lessons of marine mammals. Alexis Pauline Gumbs has spent hundreds of hours watching our aquatic cousins. They are queer, fierce, protective of each other, complex, shaped by conflict, and struggling to survive the extractive and militarized conditions humans impose on the ocean. With a brilliant mix of poetic sensibility, naturalist observation, and Black feminist insights, she translates their submerged wisdom to reveal what they might teach us. And this book is beautifully written. The author is a poet, and you can tell, every sentence you can tell. I underlined and put hearts beside so many, so many things in here. I learned a lot about marine mammals by reading this book. This is a really, really special one. This book could be could be a bibliomancy book that you would turn to, you know, a page and read a passage, you know, one a day, and you would get so much out of that practice. I think this book is really, really special. And then there are a series of activities at the back, and they're provided for one for each section. And there are activities solo version and activities pod or squad version that you can do. And there's a mix, you know, of reflecting or of listening or doing, you know, creative activities, all kinds of things. So this book, Undrowned, 5 stars. 5 stars, like more than 5 actually. 6 stars. I loved that one. And then my last 2 books that I wanted to talk about, I chose, folks will remember from my February recap. I recently got the deck, the TBR Cards by Bowties and Books. Jessie is the creator of this, and Jessie is the content creator of Bowties and Books YouTube channel and Instagram as well. And so I really like their channel. I got the cards, and the cards are good for choosing your next book. And so at the end of the February recap video, I picked out 3 cards. I had rolled a d6. I got 3. Actually, I think I got a 1 and then a 2. I rolled twice because I was excited. And I chose 3 cards that help you to find a book. So I read from that. And one of the cards that I drew was the ABC card, to read a book where the title starts with the first letter of your name. So I picked a book that starts with L for Laura, and the book that I chose and that I read was Looking for Jake by China Miéville, and this is another short story collection. I've read a lot of China Miéville's novels. I've read the Boslag books, which is Perdita Street Station, The Scar, and Iron Council, which is a series because I think there's going to be eventually more books, but right now there are 3. And I've read Embassy Town, and I've read The City in the City, and I've read this Census Taker. And so now I read Looking for Jake. Can you tell I'm a fan? I really, really liked this. China Miéville, I think, is a novelist at heart. He has not published, I don't think, any other short fiction except for this one. But and I mean, inevitably with short stories, like it's a bit uneven, I think. But there were a couple of 5-star stories in here for me. The post-apocalyptic 100-page novella, The Tane, which is the last story in here. The Tane is the reflective surface in the back of a mirror. That's what the word means. I didn't know that until I read this. Was really, really good. I also loved, there's a short story in here about the kind of backstory of Jack Half-a-Prayer, who's a character in some of the novels, or one of the novels anyway, that he wrote that I've read before. So I really loved those stories. The stories are quite creepy in a number of cases. Some of them are kind of post-apocalyptic stories. There's some very creepy things in some of these stories, but I really enjoyed it. So, and I knew that I would like it, so I was happy to read that one. Then I got 2 more cards, the other 2, and I ended up it wasn't my initial plan, but I ended up combining these into a single read. So I got the throwback card, read something written prior to 2000, which I think it's hilarious that it's pre-2000, it's a throwback. That's so recent. And then the other one was a book you're unsure about. And so for that combination, I wanted to choose a book written prior to 2000 that I was unsure about. And so I picked a book by Jin Yong, and it's called Hero Born. And it's the first book in the Legends of the Condor Heroes, which has been adapted for screen. I'm sure many folks know. It's a wuxia martial arts heroes story. And so I read that one, and it was recommended to me a couple of times, including by my brother. My brother and I have some very similar taste and then some very divergent, so I never really know with my brother if I'll like it or not. And so really it was a book I was unsure about, only insofar as I had never really read a martial arts focused novel before. And the wuxia is a very popular genre for sure, but I had never read anything in that area at all. And of course it was absolutely written well prior to 2000. So I quite enjoyed it. I wasn't sure about it at first, but I am totally going to read the second one. I will say that some things in the book, A Hero Born, I wasn't sure about, like, as I was reading them, and I was like, I don't know if I love this. But I will say that from reading other people's reviews, like people who know more about this series, like by far than I do, that it seems like some of the things that I wasn't super into about this book are actually more a product of the way that the English translation was done than they are the book itself, because the book is translated into English. So, you know, it was different. I'm really I'm really invested in the two main characters of this book now, though. So I'm going to get the next book that comes after A Hero Born. These are stories that by Jin Yong that were initially published, as like chunks of them were published in a periodical, like over an extended period of time, as I understand it. So they're presented as novels now, but there's, decisions had to be made about where the endings would be placed and so on. So the first one ended really, I felt like on a, not quite a cliffhanger, but definitely like you really want to know what's going to happen next. So I will be reading the second Legends of the Condor Heroes book for sure. Now, that's all my reading. 8 books in 19 minutes for March. So I thought what I would do now is roll the D6 again and choose some more TBR cards to inspire the reading for April. And see what we get. I'm going to just because the deck, just because the TBR cards are new to me, I am this time going to leave out the 3 cards that I had chosen last month. I mean, obviously there's so many books that are pre-2000 that I'm unsure about and start with L. There's no shortage of books to pick, but for the sake of getting to see and pick from more of these cards, I'm just going to leave them to the side for now and just see what else I come up with. So, the D6. How many cards should I pick to inspire my reading for April? Being a diviner, you have to be clear about your question. Oh, it's a bigger number than last time. I got 4. So I get to pick 4 cards. And again, that does not have to mean 4 books. That can mean one book with 4 things all built into it, depending on how creative with the combinations I can get. So 4. Maybe something that's on my to-read pile of books in the other room will be suited to one of these. I'm dropping. So what 4 cards should I read from for April? Okay. Card number 1. Discovery. From library. Find a book you've never read. Well, there's a lot of books I've never read. The vast majority of books, in fact. Find a book you've never read, so don't read. Okay, that's easy. But the illustration here, the image says books you've never heard of on it. So I'm going to think about books that I've never heard of and go hunting for something. Now, I don't know if it will be library depending. We're in a fairly strict end of the restrictions right now where I live. So I'll see what the library is doing and maybe or maybe not go that direction. Maybe I'll get an ebook instead. But either way, a book I've never heard of as of this moment will be a book that I read in April. Fresh meat, a trope you have not read before. That is really hard. Do you have tropes that you like? I'm going to have to look up a list of tropes and find one that I haven't read before. I have no idea what that's going to be, so we'll see. Card number 3. Page to screen, a book adapted to screen. So that could be film or television. I have an idea of what I might pick for this, because the film I've already seen, and that's Arrival, is based on a story by Ted Chiang, which I haven't actually read. I might pick that, but we'll see. Page to screen. There's lots of choices for that. And number 4, Victor Laval, horror or paranormal fiction with strong social themes. This is like very up my alley for sure in terms of book taste. So, ooh, what is that going to be? If anybody has any suggestions for me of any of these 4 things, you can tell me what you think I should read based on, well, maybe you probably won't know. What is a book I've never heard of? What is a trope that I have not read before? What is a book adapted to screen that I might like? And inspired by Victor Laval, a horror or paranormal fiction with strong social themes. I do have some ideas for this too, but there's lots of possibilities, and if you know any, let me know. We will see. Okay, so that's the books. Animal of the month as the final wrap-up item. For the animal of the month, I had egret. And egret is an interesting one. I see egrets around where I live, especially when I'm canoeing. You'll see them looking for food in the shallow water of the rivers. And I will mention that this is from Animal Allies 2, and it happens to be the card on the cover of the box. So I was learning about egret this month, and so one thing that I learned about egrets that I didn't know is that they're far more geographically dispersed than I realized. I learned that where I live, which is in Ontario, is an area that egrets will come during breeding season sometimes, but they live on almost every continent, actually. I did not know that egrets lived on almost every continent. I mean, I don't know why I would assume otherwise, but yeah, they're everywhere. There's all different kinds of egrets, which is very interesting. Some of them ride on top of other animals and eat the biting insects and things off of other animals, mammals, which is interesting as well. There's some good pictures of egrets sitting on top of water buffaloes, things like this. And something else that I learned, and this is, I guess, the core bit of it. I learned some different ways to identify the egret as opposed to other kinds of herons and also cranes, which are not related to egrets at all, but sometimes get apparently confused with them because they are wading birds. Cranes fly with their neck straight, and egrets and herons kind of put their neck back like this and hold their neck back. So that's a thing that's useful to know if I'm bird watching. I would like to know who I'm looking at. But the most interesting thing that I found out about egrets, the Animal Allies 2 has a little pamphlet for the meanings of the cards that I basically never use because I just go by my own associations of the animals. And it talked about egret being associated with teamwork and working together. I'm like, that's interesting, but I couldn't really make that connection because when I see the egrets, what I usually see, or always see, is one or two. And they'll be waiting and, hunting, looking for fish or other things to eat in the water. I had no clue that they live in these huge groups, and they nest in these huge groups with the nests up in the trees. And so you'll see like dozens and dozens of nests in kind of, 3 or 4 trees all beside each other. It looks amazing. I had no clue. I had no clue because I am not, it seems, close to any places where this happens. So I did not know that they did that. I don't even know if I knew that they built nests in trees, honestly, because I've never seen one before. So now I know. And now this has inspired me because I believe from my online research that there are some places that sometimes egret will have a nesting colony that would be within a reasonable driving range for me to go and visit to see. So at some point when it is, safe and no longer discouraged to be going around from place to place, I'm going to hopefully get to see a egret nesting colony someday that I never knew existed. So that was what I learned about egret this month. I would like to pick another one from Animal Allies too. Again, I've been leaving aside the ones that I've already picked this year just to not have a duplicate. So I will pick the animal for April as a way of sending us off from this very long video. I don't know why I'm shuffling it end to end. This deck is not so big that is necessary. I love these decks. So what animals should I explore in April? One more shuffle. I had one jump out, and I think I'm going to go with the one that jumped out. Ladybug. This is a good one because I've been seeing ladybugs in the last just couple of weeks, for the first time since the winter is fading away. So I'm going to be learning all about ladybug in April. And at the end of the month, I will hopefully have some things to share about the ladybug. So I will leave it there. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day. And I'll see you all again soon.